Classic 1940s, 1950s pulp western horror. Windstormer. A novel of wolves, shadows, and the storm-born boy. By James. Chapter 1. Born under a broken moon. The storm came in sideways across the desert, dragging sheets of sand and lightning behind it like a wounded god. Folks in Stump Sound Crossing would talk about that night for years afterward, though none of them agreed on the details. Some swore the thunder sounded like hoofbeats. Others claimed the moon cracked clean in half for a heartbeat, spilling white fire across the canyon walls. But everyone remembered the feeling, that crawling, electric hush that settles over the land when something old is waking up. Inside a half-finished cabin perched on the edge of Red Mesa, a woman labored alone. Her name was Nash G, though the settlers called her Naya because their tongues tripped over Navajo syllables. Sweat rolled down her temples as she gripped the edge of the rough-hewn table, breath coming in sharp bursts. The storm rattled the shutters. The wind moaned through the cracks in the walls. And somewhere deep in the desert, a wolf howled, long, low, and mournful. Her husband, Thomas Grady, stumbled through the door just as lightning split the sky. He was soaked to the bone, hat plastered to his head, eyes wide with fear and hope. "I got the midwife," he gasped, though the woman behind him looked more rattled than ready. "Storm near took the horse's legs out from under us." Naya shook her head. "Too late," she whispered. "He's coming now." Thomas dropped to his knees beside her, hands trembling. He'd carved a small wooden wolf earlier that day, a charm meant to protect the child. Now it lay on the table beside her, its eyes two tiny beads of polished obsidian. He pressed it into her palm. "For strength," he murmured. The wind screamed. The storm hammered the roof. And with a final cry that seemed to echo off the canyon walls, the child entered the world. The midwife froze. Thomas froze. Even the storm seemed to pause. The baby's eyes were open, wide, dark, and glinting with a strange, ember-like shimmer. Not bright enough to be unnatural, but not dull enough to be ordinary. Something in between. Something watching. Naya gathered him close, whispering a prayer older than the mesas themselves. "Shiyazi," she breathed. "My little one. Born between worlds." Thomas swallowed hard. "He's perfect," he said, though his voice wavered. "Strong. Look at him." But the midwife backed away, crossing herself. "Storm child," she muttered. "Bad luck. Bad omen." Thomas bristled. "He's my son." "He's not meant for this world," the woman whispered, as darting to the door. "You mark my words, Thomas Grady, nothing good comes from a birth like this." A crack of thunder drowned out her last words. When the lightning flashed again, she was already gone, swallowed by the storm. Naya held the child tighter. "She fears what she does not understand." Thomas nodded, though unease gnawed at him. The baby's eyes flickered again, just a glint, a trick of the firelight, he told himself. Just nerves. Just exhaustion. But outside, the wolves began to howl. Not one. Not two. A chorus. Naya stiffened. "They know," she whispered. "Know what?" "That a spirit has entered the world tonight. And spirits draw attention." Thomas tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in his throat. The wolves' cries rose and fell like a chant, circling the cabin, echoing through the storm. He shut the shutters tight, though it did nothing to quiet the sound. Hours passed. The storm eased. The wolves fell silent. At dawn, the desert glowed gold and red, washed clean by the night's fury. Thomas stepped outside to fetch water, boots sinking into the damp earth. The air smelled of sage and lightning. He paused, scanning the horizon. Tracks. Wolf tracks. Dozens of them, circling the cabin in a perfect ring. He knelt, touching one of the prints. It was deep, too deep for any normal wolf. As if something heavier had stood there. Something watching. A chill crawled up his spine. Inside, Naya rocked the baby gently, humming a lullaby. The child stared up at her, calm and silent, eyes reflecting the morning light in a way that made her breath catch. Thomas stepped back inside, forcing a smile. Storms passed, he said. We made it. Naya nodded, though her gaze never left the child. He will walk a hard road, she murmured. The spirits marked him last night. Thomas frowned. Spirits don't mark babies. Not babies, she agreed softly. But warriors. Guides. Ghosts. He opened his mouth to argue, but a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut behind him. The wooden wolf charm rolled across the floor and came to rest at the baby's feet. The child reached for it. The obsidian eyes glinted. And for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, Thomas thought he saw a shadow move behind the boy's gaze. Something ancient. Something hungry. Something waiting. He blinked, and it was gone. But the unease remained. Naya kissed the baby's forehead. He will be called Kiiłchíí, she said. Red boy. For the storm that brought him. Thomas nodded slowly. And Grady, he added. He'll carry my name too. The baby cooed softly, clutching the wooden wolf. Outside, the desert wind whispered along the canyon walls, carrying with it a promise or a warning. The boy born under a broken moon would not walk an ordinary path. And somewhere far off, beyond the mesas and the rising sun, a lone wolf howled once more. As the howl fades, Thomas notices something half buried in the mud outside the cabin, a massive paw print, far larger than any wolf's, pressed deep into the earth and still warm. The storm outside the cabin cracked open the night sky, lightning splitting the clouds like a jagged wound. Thomas froze mid-stride. Atsibara's eyes widened. Kiiłchíí, still a child, felt something ancient stir inside him, something that wasn't supposed to wake yet. The wind whispered his name in a voice older than the desert. And from far beyond the ridge, a wolf howled, but no wolf had ever sounded like that. Chapter 2. The boy nobody claimed. The storm had not passed. It had only changed shape. Lightning crawled across the sky like a living thing, and the desert whispered the name of the child born beneath the broken moon. Kiiłchíí woke to the sound of a wolf that did not belong to this world. The desert raised him before any people ever did. By the time the boy called Kiiłchíí could walk, he wandered farther than any child should have dared, out past the yucca fields, past the dry creek beds, past the places where even seasoned riders hesitated. Thomas Grady would find him perched on a boulder, staring at the horizon like he was waiting for something to arrive. Naya would find him crouched in the dirt, tracing spirals and wolf tracks with a stick, humming a tune she didn't recognize. He didn't cry much. Didn't laugh much either. Mostly he watched. And the desert watched back. The settlers whispered first. They always did. Storm child, they muttered when he passed. Bad luck. Half-breed omen. Eyes too old for a boy that young. They said it quiet, but not quiet enough. The Navajo families weren't much kinder. Some pitied Naya. Some pitied the boy. Most kept their distance. Born between, they said. Not meant to stay long in this world. But Kiiłchíí stayed. And he grew. He learned to track before he learned to read. He could spot a rattler in the brush before it struck. He could tell when rain was coming by the way the wind shifted. He could find his way home in the dark by listening to the land breathe. Thomas tried to teach him settler ways, roping, riding, chopping wood, but the boy always drifted back to the quiet places. Naya taught him Navajo stories, coyote tricks, hero twins, the sacred mountains, but he listened with a strange stillness, as if comparing her words to something he already knew. And then the dreams began. They came when he was 5. Maybe 6. Hard to say. Time moved differently around him. He would wake in the middle of the night, breathing hard, eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. Naya would hold him close, whispering prayers, but he never cried. He only whispered one word. Wolves. 2 of them. One white as bone. One black as midnight. Circling each other. Snarling. Waiting. Thomas dismissed it as nightmares. Boys got an imagination, he said, though unease tugged at him. Naya said nothing. She'd seen the tracks outside the cabin. She'd heard the howls that came too close, too often. One morning, after a night of restless sleep, Kiiłchíí stepped outside barefoot and froze. The sun was barely up, the desert still cool. Thomas followed him out, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What is it, son? The boy pointed. Wolf tracks. Fresh. Leading straight to the cabin door. Thomas knelt, heart thudding. Damn things are getting bold. But Kiiłchíí shook his head. Not wolves, he whispered. Thomas frowned. Tracks look like wolves to me. The boy didn't argue. He simply placed his small hand over one of the prints. His fingers didn't reach the edges. Too big. Too deep. Thomas swallowed hard. Come inside. But the boy didn't move. He stared at the horizon, eyes narrowing, as if he could see something far beyond the mesas. That was the first time Thomas felt it, the sense that his son was listening to something he couldn't hear. School didn't help matters. The settler children mocked him for his quietness, his mixed blood, his strange eyes. The Navajo children avoided him because their elders told them to. He sat alone at lunch, alone during lessons, alone on the walk home. One afternoon, 3 older boys cornered him behind the schoolhouse. Storm brat, one sneered. Bet your mama cursed the sky when you were born. Kiiłchíí didn't speak. Another boy shoved him. Say something, ghost eyes. Still nothing. The third boy swung. Kiiłchíí moved faster than any child should have. He ducked, grabbed the boy's wrist, and twisted, not enough to break it, but enough to make the boy scream. The other 2 backed away, eyes wide. What are you? One whispered. Kiiłchíí let go and walked home without a word. That night, Thomas tried to scold him, but the boy only stared into the fire. They were loud, he said. The wolves don't like loud. Thomas shivered. What wolves? Kiiłchíí looked up, eyes reflecting the flames. The ones that follow me. The dreams grew stronger. Sometimes he woke with dirt under his nails, though he hadn't left the cabin. Sometimes he woke standing, facing the door, as if he'd been about to walk into the night. Once, Naya found him outside at dawn, sitting cross-legged in the dust, staring at 2 sets of tracks, one white, one black, circling each other. She didn't wake him. She didn't dare. When he finally stirred, he said, "They're waiting." For what? She whispered. For me. By the time he was 10, the desert had become his refuge. He wandered farther than ever, sometimes gone from sunrise to sunset. Thomas worried. Naya worried more. But whenever they tried to stop him, the boy grew restless, agitated, like a caged animal. One evening, he returned just as the sun dipped behind the canyon. His clothes were dusty, his hair tangled, his eyes distant. "Where were you?" Thomas demanded. Kiiłchíí hesitated. "Listening." "To what?" He pointed toward the mesa. "The wolves." Thomas's jaw tightened. "There are no wolves out there today. I rode that way this morning." Kiiłchíí shook his head. "Not those wolves." Naya's breath caught. "The dream wolves." The boy nodded. Thomas slammed his fist on the table. "Enough of this nonsense. Wolves don't talk. Wolves don't follow boys. Wolves don't." A howl cut him off. Long, low. Close. Too close. Thomas froze. Naya's eyes widened. Kiiłchíí didn't move. Another howl answered. Higher. Sharper. Closer still. Thomas grabbed his rifle. "Stay inside." But Kiiłchíí stepped toward the door. "Kiiłchíí!" Naya cried. He paused, hand on the latch. "They're calling." Thomas raised the rifle. "You're not going out there." The boy turned. His eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. "They're not calling you," he said softly. "They're calling me." He opened the door. The desert wind rushed in. And in the distance, two wolves, one white, one black, stood on the ridge, watching him. Waiting. As Kiiłchíí steps toward the ridge, a massive shadow moves behind the wolves, something larger, something wrong, and the ground trembles beneath his feet. The dream vision shattered like glass, leaving Kiiłchíí gasping in the dark. The white wolf's warning still echoed in his skull. But another sound rose beneath it, the steady, rhythmic thump of hooves. Not one horse. Many. Atseba rushed to the window, breath catching. "Kiiłchíí, someone's coming." And the black wolf inside him lifted its head. Chapter 3 Red Mesa Dawn. The hooves grew louder. Closer. Atsebara's breath fogged the windowpane as she whispered, "They're here." And in the darkness behind her reflection, Kiiłchíí saw the faint outline of a wolf's eyes, one white, one black, watching him. The sun rose over Red Mesa like a blade being drawn from a sheath, slow, gleaming, and dangerous. The desert glowed blood red in the early light, and the long shadows of the canyon stretched like fingers reaching for the boy who walked alone toward the ridge. Kiiłchíí didn't look back at the cabin. He didn't hear Naya's muffled sob or Thomas's whispered curse. All he heard was the wind. And beneath the wind, the steady, rhythmic breathing of the two wolves waiting for him. The white wolf stood tall and still, its fur glowing like frost in the dawn. The black wolf paced, restless, its eyes burning like coals. They didn't snarl. They didn't bare their teeth. They simply watched him approach. But behind them, something moved. A shadow. A shape too large to be wolf or man. It shifted like smoke, like heat rising off the desert floor, but darker. Heavier. Wrong. Kiiłchíí stopped 10 paces from the ridge. The wolves turned their heads toward him in unison. The white wolf's gaze was calm, steady. The black wolf's was hungry. The shadow behind them pulsed. "Kiiłchíí." The voice cracked across the mesa like a whip. He turned. A girl stood on the path behind him, hands on her hips, hair whipping in the wind. She was maybe a year older than him, maybe two, hard to tell with the way she carried herself, chin high, eyes sharp. She wore a woven sash around her waist and carried a small bundle of herbs and feathers. Atseba. He didn't know her name yet. But he would. She marched toward him like she had every right to be there. "You're not supposed to be out here alone," she said, stopping beside him. "My grandmother says the ridge is where the old spirits walk." Kiiłchíí didn't answer. She followed his gaze and froze. The wolves were gone. The shadow was gone. Only the empty ridge remained, glowing in the morning sun. Atseba swallowed. I saw them. Didn't I?" Kiiłchíí nodded. She stepped closer to the edge, peering down the canyon. "White wolf and black wolf," she whispered. "The story of the two spirits. One brings balance. One brings hunger." He looked at her sharply. "Which one wins?" She shrugged. "Whichever one you feed." He didn't know why, but her answer made something twist inside him, fear, maybe. Or recognition. Atseba turned to him. "I'm Atseba. My family lives near the river." "Who are you?" "Kiiłchíí." She nodded. "Red boy." "Fitting." He frowned. "Why?" She pointed at the horizon. "Because the desert listens to you." He didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever spoken to him like he was something more than a burden or a warning. She didn't look afraid of him. She didn't look curious, either. She looked certain. "Come on," she said, grabbing his wrist. "If you're going to wander out here, you should at least know where the safe paths are." He let her pull him along the ridge. The sun warmed the rocks beneath their feet. The wind carried the scent of sage and dust. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. They walked in silence for a while, Atseba pointing out landmarks, coyote dens, hidden springs, places where the rock was thin and dangerous. She moved with confidence, sure-footed as a mountain goat. "You see things," she said suddenly. Kiiłchíí stiffened. "What things?" "Things other people don't." She glanced at him. "I saw the wolves too. But I think you see them more often." He didn't answer. She didn't push. They reached a narrow ledge overlooking the canyon. The wind howled through the stone pillars below, making a sound like distant voices. Atseba sat on a flat rock and patted the space beside her. He sat. "My grandmother says some people are born with one foot in this world and one in the next," she said. "She says they're meant to guide others. Or to fight things that shouldn't be here." Kiiłchíí stared at the canyon floor. "I don't want to fight anything." Atseba smiled softly. "Nobody does. But sometimes the world doesn't ask what we want." He looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were dark and steady, full of something he didn't have a word for yet. Strength, maybe. Or kindness. A gust of wind swept across the ridge, carrying with it a sound that made both of them freeze. A rifle shot. Sharp. Echoing. Close. Atseba's eyes widened. That came from the river. Kiiłchíí stood. "Your family?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. They ran. Down the ridge, across the dry wash, through the scrub brush. The desert blurred around them. Kiiłchíí's heart pounded, not with fear, but with something deeper, something that felt like the black wolf's breath on his neck. They reached the river bank just as a second shot rang out. Atseba skidded to a stop. "No. No." Smoke rose from the trees ahead. Horses whinnied. Men shouted. Kiiłchíí grabbed her arm. Stay here. She shook her head violently. No. My grandmother, my brothers. Another shout. A scream. Atseba lunged forward, but Kiiłchíí held her back with surprising strength. If you go now, they'll see you. Tears streaked her dust-covered cheeks. I have to. A shadow moved between the trees. A man. Holding a rifle. Kiiłchíí's breath caught. He recognized the man's stance. The swagger. The cruelty in the way he kicked something on the ground. Atseba saw it too, and screamed. The man turned. Kiiłchíí shoved her behind a boulder just as the rifle cracked again. The bullet hit the stone inches from his head. Atseba sobbed. They'll kill us. Kiiłchíí didn't hear the rest. Because behind the gunmen, in the smoke and chaos, two wolves appeared. One white. One black. Circling. Waiting. And behind them, just for a heartbeat, the massive shadow rose again. Watching him. Calling him. As the wolves vanished into the smoke, the gunman turns toward Kiiłchíí with a grin full of broken teeth and says, well. Now, look what the storm blew in. The outlaw's sigil burned on the dirt floor, pulsing like a heartbeat. Thomas tried to stamp it out, but the glow only spread, crawling like fire across dry brush. Kiiłchíí felt the heat rise through his boots. Atseba grabbed his arm. That mark, it's calling something. The wind outside died. The desert held its breath. And from the darkness beyond the corral, a voice whispered. Found you. Chapter 4 A Home Carved from Stone. The rune burned like a brand on the earth, pulsing with a heartbeat that wasn't human. Thomas reached for his rifle. Atseba reached for Kiiłchíí. And the desert reached for all three of them. The river ran red that morning, not with blood, but with the reflection of a dawn too bright, too sharp, too full of warning. Smoke still curled from the cottonwoods where the gunman had stood, but by the time Kiiłchíí dared to peek over the boulder again, the man was gone. The wolves were gone. The shadow was gone. Only Atseba's trembling breath remained. She clung to him, fingers digging into his arm. My grandmother, my brothers. Kiiłchíí didn't speak. He didn't know how to tell her what he'd seen. What he felt. The wolves hadn't come for her family. They'd come for him. And whatever shadow followed them, it was growing. They crept toward the smoke, hearts pounding. But when they reached the clearing, the scene was not what they expected. Atseba's family was alive. Shaken. Scattered. But alive. Her grandmother knelt by the fire pit, muttering prayers. Her brothers stood guard with spears and old rifles. Atseba ran to them, sobbing with relief. Kiiłchíí hung back, unsure whether he belonged. The grandmother's eyes found him anyway. Old eyes. Sharp eyes. Eyes that had seen too much. You, she rasped. Storm child. Kiiłchíí stiffened. Atseba wiped her tears. Grandmother, he helped me. I know what he did. The old woman rose slowly, leaning on her cane. And I know what follows him. The wind shifted. The fire crackled. The desert held its breath. Atseba's brothers glared at Kiiłchíí, hands tightening on their weapons. But the grandmother raised a hand. Leave him. He is not the danger. Kiiłchíí swallowed. The man with the rifle. Gone, she said. Driven off by something he feared more than us. Atseba shivered. The wolves. The grandmother's gaze darkened. Not wolves. Not anymore. Kiiłchíí felt the truth of it settle in his bones. The white wolf. The black wolf. The shadow behind them. They were not just dreams. Not just omens. They were watching him. Life changed after that morning. Atsaba's family moved closer to the canyon rim, building their home near the path that led to Kiiłchíí's cabin. They said it was for safety. They said it was for community. But the truth was simpler. Atsaba refused to stay away from him. She visited daily, sometimes with herbs, sometimes with stories, sometimes with nothing but a grin and a dare to follow her deeper into the desert. She talked enough for both of them, filling the silence with laughter and questions he didn't know how to answer. And slowly, the silence inside him softened. They explored the mesas together. They learned the hidden springs, the safe caves, the places where the wind carried voices if you listened just right. They carved their names into a sandstone wall, hers bold and looping, his small and careful. They grew. And the desert grew with them. By the time they were 16, they had built a home of their own. Not a house, not yet. But a place. A space carved from stone and sunlight. A hollow beneath an overhang where they kept blankets and dried meat. A fire pit ringed with smooth river stones. A narrow ledge that overlooked the entire canyon, where they sat at dusk and watched the world turn gold. Atsaba called it their mesa. Kiiłchíí didn't argue. He carved small wooden animals while she wove bracelets and told stories. He hunted rabbits while she gathered herbs. They shared food, shared silence, shared the strange, unspoken bond that had formed between them the day the wolves appeared. But the wolves never came again. Not in the flesh. Only in dreams. Kiiłchíí didn't tell her how often he saw them, how the white wolf watched him with patient sorrow, how the black wolf circled him with hungry anticipation. He didn't tell her how the shadow behind them grew larger each year, how it whispered in a voice he couldn't understand. He didn't tell her because he didn't want to frighten her. And because he didn't want to admit he was frightened himself. One evening, as the sun bled into the canyon, Atsaba leaned against him, head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Leaving where?" "Here. This mesa. This desert. This life." He shook his head. "This is home." She smiled. "Good. Because I don't want to leave either." He felt warmth bloom in his chest, strange, unfamiliar, but welcome. Atsaba reached into her satchel and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in red cloth. "I made something for you." He unwrapped it carefully. A totem. A wolf split down the middle, one half white, one half black, carved from a single piece of bone. The detail was astonishing. The eyes were tiny beads of amber and obsidian. The fur was etched with delicate lines. The two halves met perfectly at the center, neither overpowering the other. Kiiłchíí's breath caught. "How did you?" "I've been working on it for months." She tied a leather cord through the top. "Wear it." "For balance." He hesitated. "You believe the stories?" She touched his cheek. "I believe in you." He looked away, throat tight. "I don't know what I am." "You're Kiiłchíí," she said simply. "Red boy. My boy." He closed his eyes. For a moment, the world felt right. Whole. Balanced. Then the wind shifted. Cold. Sharp. Wrong. Atsaba shivered. Storm coming? Kiiłchíí listened. Not to the wind. To the silence beneath it. "No," he whispered. "Something else." A distant rumble echoed across the canyon. Not thunder. Not hoofbeats. Something heavier. Something familiar. Atseba grabbed his hand. What is it? He didn't answer. Because he already knew. The wolves were returning. And the shadow behind them was no longer content to stay hidden. As the rumble grows louder, a lone rider appears on the far ridge, silhouetted against the dying sun, watching their mesa with a stillness that chills Kiiłchíí to the bone. The outlaw's shadow stretched unnaturally long across the canyon floor, bending and twisting like a living thing. Kiiłchíí stepped back, heart pounding. The outlaw grinned, revealing teeth too sharp to be human. You ain't the only one with wolves in your blood, boy. His shadow rose behind him and opened its eyes. Chapter 5: The Riders at Dusk. The outlaw's shadow rose first. Then the outlaw followed. But the thing that stepped forward was not a man. And the canyon knew it. Dusk in the desert is a dangerous hour. The sun bleeds out behind the mesas, the shadows stretch long and hungry, and the wind carries whispers that don't belong to the living. It was at that hour, when the world holds its breath between day and night, that the riders came. Kiiłchíí saw them first. He and Atseba were returning from the canyon rim, the sky painted in streaks of gold and bruised purple. They walked close, shoulders brushing, the split wolf totem warm against his chest. The rumble he'd heard earlier still echoed in his bones, but he hadn't told her. Not yet. They crested a rise overlooking their small homestead, a cabin carved from stone and sweat, a place they'd built with their own hands. Smoke curled from the chimney. The horses grazed lazily near the corral. For a moment, everything looked peaceful. Then Kiiłchíí froze. Atseba followed his gaze and gasped. Four riders approached the cabin from the west, silhouettes against the dying sun. Their horses kicked up dust. Their coats flapped like wings. Their laughter, sharp, cruel, carried on the wind. Outlaws. The same kind who'd haunted the river. The same kind who'd watched their mesa from afar. The same kind who'd been hunting him since the day he was born. Atseba grabbed his arm. We have to warn your parents. Kiiłchíí didn't move. His breath came slow, steady. Too steady. The way it did when the wolves were near. Atseba shook him. Kiiłchíí. He blinked and the spell broke. They ran. Down the slope, across the scrub, feet pounding the earth. The riders reached the cabin first. One dismounted and kicked the door open. Another circled around back. A third fired a shot into the air, laughing. Thomas burst from the doorway with a rifle in hand. Get off my land. The outlaw closest to him grinned. We're just visiting, old man. The fourth rider, broad-shouldered, scarred, eyes like dead coals, spat into the dirt. We're looking for the boy. Thomas's grip tightened. You won't find him here. Oh, we will, the scarred man said. Stormchild leaves a trail even a blind man could follow. Atseba's breath hitched. They know. Kiiłchíí stepped forward. I'm here. Atseba grabbed him. No. But it was too late. The riders turned as one. Well, the scarred man drawled. Look what the desert coughed up. Thomas raised his rifle. You stay away from my son. The outlaw laughed. Your son? That thing ain't yours. He belongs to the shadows. Kiiłchíí felt something cold coil inside him. The black wolf stirred. Atseba whispered, don't feed it. But the riders were already moving. The one behind the cabin grabbed Naya as she tried to flee. She screamed. Thomas fired. The shot went wide. Another outlaw swung his rifle like a club, knocking Thomas to the ground. Atseba lunged forward, but Kiiłchíí held her back. Stay behind me. The scarred man dismounted, boots crunching on the gravel. We ain't here to kill you, boy. Not yet. We're here to take you to the man who wants you. Kiiłchíí's voice was low. Who? The outlaw smiled, revealing broken teeth. The one who's been following you since the day you were born. The one who sent the wolves. Kiiłchíí's blood ran cold. Wolves don't take orders. These ones do. The black wolf's growl echoed in his mind. Atseba whispered, Kiiłchíí, don't. But the scarred man stepped closer, hand reaching for him. And something inside Kiiłchíí snapped. He moved faster than he ever had, or faster than any boy should. He grabbed the outlaw's wrist and twisted. Bone cracked. The man screamed. The other riders shouted, scrambling for their guns. Thomas yelled, run. Naya cried out as the outlaw holding her tightened his grip. Atseba grabbed Kiiłchíí's hand. We have to go. But Kiiłchíí didn't run. He roared. A sound not entirely human. A sound that made the horses rear and the outlaws stumble. A sound that echoed across the canyon like a challenge. The white wolf's calm presence flickered in his mind. The black wolf surged forward. The scarred man staggered back, clutching his broken wrist. What are you? Kiiłchíí stepped toward him, eyes glowing faintly in the dusk. You came for me. The outlaw's fear twisted into rage. Then I'll take you myself. He lunged. Kiiłchíí dodged, grabbed the man's coat, and slammed him into the ground. Dust exploded around them. The other riders fired wildly. Bullets tore through the air. Thomas dragged Naya toward the corral. Atseba screamed his name. Kiiłchíí. He turned and saw the outlaw behind her raise his rifle. Time slowed. The black wolf howled. Kiiłchíí ran. But he wasn't fast enough. The rifle cracked. Atseba fell. Kiiłchíí's scream tore the sky open. He reached her side, hands shaking. Blood stained her shoulder. She gasped, eyes wide with pain but alive. Kiiłchíí, go. He looked up. The riders were regrouping. Reloading. Preparing to finish what they'd started. The scarred man wiped blood from his mouth. You're coming with us, boy. One way or another. Kiiłchíí rose slowly. The wind died. The desert went silent. And behind the outlaws, just for a heartbeat, the massive shadow appeared again. Closer. Hungrier. Waiting. Kiiłchíí whispered, no. The scarred man sneered. No. Kiiłchíí's eyes glowed brighter. You can't have me. The outlaw raised his gun. Then we'll take the girl instead. Atseba cried out. Kiiłchíí stepped forward and the ground trembled beneath his feet. A fissure splits open between Kiiłchíí and the riders, a roar rising from the earth itself, something ancient waking beneath the desert floor. The people of smoke circled Kiiłchíí, their forms flickering between flesh and vapor. The elder placed the split wolf totem in his hands. You will be tested, he warned. The ground trembled beneath them. A crack split the earth at Kiiłchíí's feet, glowing with a faint red light. The black wolf surged inside him. The white wolf braced. And from deep within the canyon, something answered the tremor with a low, rumbling growl. Chapter 6 Ashes on the canyon floor. The earth crack opened beneath Kiiłchíí's feet, glowing red like the inside of a furnace. The people of smoke vanished into the night. Only the elder remained, whispering, "The wolves have chosen their battlefield." And the battle began with a single growl from the depths below. The earth split open with a sound like the world itself was tearing in two. Dust exploded upward, swallowing the riders in a choking cloud. Horses screamed. Men cursed. Atseba clutched her bleeding shoulder, eyes wide with terror as the ground bucked beneath them. Kiiłchíí didn't fall. He stood perfectly still, balanced on the trembling earth as if the desert itself held him upright. The split wolf totem throbbed against his chest, hot as a coal. The black wolf's presence surged inside him, hungry, eager, whispering for him to leap into the chaos and finish what the riders had started. But the white wolf was there too. Watching. Waiting. Holding him back from the edge. The fissure widened, splitting the ground between Kiiłchíí and the outlaws. One rider tumbled into the crack with a scream, swallowed by the earth. The other scrambled back, spitting curses. "What in hell?" one shouted. The scarred man staggered to his feet, face twisted with rage. "Grab the girl. We'll use her to drag him out." Atseba cried out as one of the riders lunged for her. Kiiłchíí moved. He didn't think. Didn't plan. He simply moved, faster than he ever had, faster than any human should. He reached Atseba before the outlaw did, shoving her behind him. The rider swung his rifle like a club. Kiiłchíí ducked, grabbed the man's arm, and twisted. Bone snapped. The outlaw screamed and fell to his knees. The scarred man snarled. "You little demon." He raised his gun. Kiiłchíí grabbed Atseba and dove behind a boulder as the shot cracked through the air. Stones splintered. Dust rained down. Atseba whimpered, clutching her shoulder. "Kiiłchíí. I can't. I can't run." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I won't leave you." Another shot rang out, this one from the cabin. Thomas. He stood in the doorway, rifle braced against his shoulder, face pale but determined. "Get away from my boy." The scarred man laughed. "Old man, you can't protect him from what's coming." Thomas fired again. The bullet grazed the outlaw's arm. The man cursed and ducked behind a fallen log. Naya stumbled out behind Thomas, clutching a kitchen knife. "Leave us alone. Leave our family alone." The scarred man's grin widened. "Family? That thing ain't your family. He's a curse. A mark. A message." Kiiłchíí felt something cold coil inside him. "A message from who?" The outlaw's eyes gleamed. "From the one who wants you. The one who sent the wolves. The one who's been waiting for you to grow strong enough." The black wolf growled inside him. The white wolf's presence dimmed. Atseba grabbed his hand weakly. "Don't listen, don't feed it." But the scarred man wasn't finished. "You think you're special, boy? You think you're chosen? You ain't chosen. You're claimed." Kiiłchíí's breath caught. Claimed. The word echoed through him like a drumbeat. The fissure in the earth began to close, the rumbling fading. The riders regrouped, circling like vultures. Thomas fired again, but his hands shook. Naya dragged him back inside as bullets tore through the cabin walls. Atseba's blood dripped onto the dust. Kiiłchíí's vision blurred. The black wolf surged. "Let me in," it whispered. "Let me take them." He clenched his fists. "No." The scarred man raised his gun. "Then die with them." He fired. Kiiłchíí shoved Atseba aside and leapt forward. The bullet grazed his arm, burning like fire. He didn't stop. He tackled the outlaw, slamming him into the ground. They rolled through the dust, fists flying, teeth bared. The scarred man was strong, too strong. He punched Kiiłchíí in the ribs, knocking the wind from him. He grabbed a rock and swung it down toward Kiiłchíí's skull. The black wolf roared. Kiiłchíí caught the outlaw's wrist mid-swing. His eyes glowed. The outlaw froze. What are you?" Kiiłchíí twisted. The man screamed. The other riders charged. Thomas burst from the cabin, firing wildly. Naya threw rocks, screaming curses. Atseba crawled toward Kiiłchíí, blood staining the dust. "Kiiłchíí," she cried. "We have to go." But he didn't move. He stared at the scarred man, chest heaving, the black wolf's hunger clawing at him. "Finish him," the wolf whispered. "End him. Feed me." Kiiłchíí raised his hand. The outlaw whimpered. Atsebara's voice broke. "Kiiłchíí, please." The white wolf flickered. Weak. Fading. Kiiłchíí's hand trembled. He looked at Atseba, her eyes full of pain, fear, and something else. Hope. He dropped the outlaw. The man scrambled back, clutching his broken arm. You should have killed me." Kiiłchíí stood slowly. "I'm not like you." The outlaw spat blood. "No. You're worse." He whistled sharply. The riders retreated, dragging their wounded with them. They mounted their horses, glaring at Kiiłchíí with hatred and fear. "This ain't over, Stormchild," the scarred man snarled. "The one who wants you, he's coming. And when he does, you'll wish we'd killed you today." They rode off into the dusk, leaving dust and blood in their wake. Silence settled over the canyon. Atseba collapsed. Kiiłchíí caught her, lowering her gently to the ground. "Stay with me. Please." Thomas and Naya rushed to them, faces pale with fear. "We need to get her inside," Naya said. "Now." They carried her into the cabin. Thomas barred the door. Naya gathered herbs and cloth. Kiiłchíí knelt beside Atseba, holding her hand. Her voice was faint. "You didn't feed it." He shook his head. "I almost did. But you didn't." He looked at the split wolf totem. The white wolf's presence flickered weakly. The black wolf prowled. Atseba squeezed his hand. "You're stronger than it." He wished he believed her. Outside, the desert wind howled. Inside, Atsebara's breathing grew shallow. And Kiiłchíí realized something with a cold, sinking certainty. The riders weren't the real threat. They were only the beginning. As night falls, a distant howl rises from the canyon, deeper, older, and far too powerful to belong to any earthly wolf. The cabin walls rattled as the howl rolled across the canyon, too deep for any wolf, too old for any living thing. Atsebara's breath hitched. Thomas froze mid-reload. Even the fire guttered low, shrinking from the sound. Kiiłchíí felt the split wolf totem burn against his chest, the white wolf dimming, the black wolf rising like a tide. Outside, the desert wind whispered a single word in a voice he didn't recognize, "Come." And Kiiłchíí knew the riders weren't the ones calling him. Chapter 7 Carried by the People of Smoke. The howl that split the night didn't fade, it grew. It rolled across the desert like a living storm, rattling the sweat lodge poles and shaking the sand loose from the stones. Kiiłchíí stepped into the moonlight, and the wind whispered his name again. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a summons. Night fell fast over the canyon, swallowing the last streaks of daylight in a single breath. The wind died. The insects quieted. Even the horses refused to make a sound. It was as if the desert itself feared what walked beneath the rising moon. Inside the cabin, Atsuba drifted in and out of consciousness. Naya pressed herbs to her wound, whispering prayers. Thomas paced the floor, rifle in hand, eyes darting to the shuttered windows. Kiiłchíí stood in the doorway, staring into the darkness. The howl came again. Not a wolf's howl. Not even close. It was deeper, older, like the earth itself was calling out in pain. The sound rolled across the canyon, rattling the stones, shaking dust from the rafters. Atsuba whimpered. Naya froze. Thomas's knuckles whitened around the rifle. Kiiłchíí, Thomas whispered, get away from that door. But the boy didn't move. He felt the howl in his bones. Felt it vibrate through the split wolf totem. Felt it tug at something buried deep inside him, something he didn't want to name. The black wolf stirred. Come. The white wolf flickered weakly. Stay. Kiiłchíí's breath trembled. Then the door burst open. Not from force. From wind. A sudden, violent gust swept through the cabin, scattering embers from the fire, knocking pots from shelves, sending Thomas stumbling backward. The wind carried smoke, thick, swirling, unnatural smoke that moved like living things. Shapes formed in the smoke. Figures. Men. Navajo men. Their bodies were half shadow, half ember, flickering like spirits caught between worlds. Their faces were painted with ash and ochre. Their eyes glowed faintly, not with malice, but with purpose. Naya gasped. The people of smoke. Thomas raised his rifle. Stay back. One of the smoke figures stepped forward, lifting a hand. The wind stilled. The smoke settled. And the figure solidified into a man, old, tall, wrapped in a blanket woven with symbols older than the mesas. His voice was a whisper and a thunderclap all at once. Storm child. You must come. Thomas stepped between them. He's not going anywhere with you. The elder's eyes softened. You cannot protect him from what hunts him. Thomas's jaw clenched. I'll die trying. The elder nodded. You may. But the boy will still be taken. Kiiłchíí swallowed hard. Taken by who? The elder turned to him. By the one who marked you at birth. The one who sent the wolves. The one who waits in the shadows. The black wolf growled inside him. The white wolf whimpered. Atsuba stirred weakly. Kiiłchíí, go with them. He knelt beside her. I won't leave you. You must, she whispered. If you stay, they'll kill you. And they'll kill us trying. Her hand trembled as she touched his cheek. Come back to me. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he stood. I'll go. Thomas grabbed his arm. Son. Kiiłchíí shook his head. I have to. Naya's eyes filled with tears. Be careful, Shiyazi. The elder extended his hand. Come. Kiiłchíí stepped into the smoke. The world dissolved. He didn't walk. He drifted. The smoke carried him like a river, swirling around him, lifting him off the ground. The canyon blurred beneath him. The stars spun overhead. The wind whispered in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. The people of smoke moved with him, silent, solemn, their bodies shifting between flesh and vapor. They guided him through the night, across the mesas, down into a hidden valley where the air smelled of sage and fire. A sweat lodge stood at the center of the valley. Round. Low. Covered in hides painted with symbols of wolves, storms, and spirits. The elder gestured. Enter. Kiiłchíí hesitated. What is this place? A place of truth, the elder said. A place where the veil between worlds grows thin. The black wolf stirred. The white wolf waited. Kiiłchíí stepped inside. The heat hit him like a hammer. Stones glowed red in the pit at the center of the lodge. Steam rose as water hissed over them. The air shimmered. The walls pulsed with shadows. The elder sat across from him. You have been hunted since the day you were born. Do you know why? Kiiłchíí shook his head. Because you were born under a broken moon, the elder said. A sign of imbalance. A sign that the old spirits were stirring. Kiiłchíí swallowed. The wolves. They are not wolves, the elder said. They are guides. One of light. One of shadow. They circle you because you stand between them. Kiiłchíí's voice trembled. What about the shadow behind them? The elder's eyes darkened. That is no guide. That is the one who marked you. The one who wants you. The one who feeds on hatred, vengeance, and fear. Kiiłchíí felt the black wolf surge. The elder leaned forward. You must choose which wolf to feed. Kiiłchíí clenched his fists. I don't want either. That is not an option. The heat intensified. The shadows deepened. The elder's voice echoed. Close your eyes. Kiiłchíí obeyed. The world fell away. He stood in a vast desert, endless, silent, lit by a moon cracked down the middle. The white wolf stood on one side, calm and steady. The black wolf stood on the other, snarling, eyes burning. Between them stood the shadow. Massive. Shifting. Hungry. It reached for him. Kiiłchíí stumbled back. What are you? The shadow's voice was a whisper of sand and bone. I am what you will become if you choose wrong. The black wolf lunged. The white wolf blocked it. Kiiłchíí screamed. The desert shattered. He woke in the sweat lodge, gasping, drenched in sweat. The elder watched him with sorrow. You have seen the truth. Kiiłchíí trembled. I saw something. Something terrible. The elder nodded. It hunts you. And it will not stop. Kiiłchíí's voice cracked. What do I do? The elder placed a hand on his shoulder. You must become stronger than the shadow. Kiiłchíí swallowed. How? The elder's eyes gleamed. By walking the path of vengeance. The black wolf stirred. The white wolf dimmed. Kiiłchíí's heart pounded. I don't want vengeance. The elder's voice was soft. You will. As the elder opens the lodge flap, Kiiłchíí sees three silhouettes waiting outside, armed, mounted, and wearing the same sigil as the scarred outlaw. They've found him. The sweat lodge flap lifted on its own, as if pulled by invisible hands. Moonlight spilled across the sand, revealing three mounted figures waiting in absolute stillness. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath their hats. Their horses didn't breathe. The elder inhaled sharply. Those are not men anymore. Kiiłchíí stepped forward, heart pounding. One rider raised a hand. And the sigil on his coat pulsed like a heartbeat. They had not come to find him. They had come to claim him. Chapter 8: The Choice of Wolves. The three riders didn't move. Didn't breathe. Their horses stood as still as carved obsidian, eyes glowing faintly beneath the brim of their hats. Kiiłchíí felt the black wolf rise inside him, hungry, eager. The riders raised their heads in unison. They had come for him. The silhouettes outside the sweat lodge did not move. They sat their horses like statues carved from dusk and dust, rifles resting across their saddles, hats pulled low. The sigil on their coats, the same jagged mark worn by the scarred outlaw, glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if lit from within. Kiiłchíí's breath caught. The people of smoke shifted around him, their bodies flickering between flesh and vapor. The elder stepped forward, blanket trailing across the dirt. "They have found you sooner than I hoped," he murmured. Kiiłchíí swallowed. "What do they want?" The elder's eyes darkened. "To deliver you to the shadow that hunts you." The black wolf stirred inside him, pacing, eager. The white wolf watched, silent and dim. The elder placed a hand on Kiiłchíí's shoulder. "You must choose your path now." Kiiłchíí shook his head. "I don't understand." "You do," the elder said softly. "You saw the truth in the vision. Two wolves circle your spirit. One of light. One of shadow. You cannot walk between them forever." Kiiłchíí's voice cracked. "If I choose the wrong one, you will become the thing that hunts you." The wind outside shifted. A horse snorted. A rifle bolt clicked. The riders were growing impatient. The elder gestured to the lodge entrance. "Come. Face them." Kiiłchíí stepped into the night. The riders watched him with cold, hungry eyes. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his jaw, nudged his horse forward. His voice was low and gravelly. "Storm child," he said. "You've caused us a great deal of trouble." Kiiłchíí stood his ground. "Why are you hunting me?" The man grinned. "Because you belong to someone. Someone who's waited a long time for you to grow into what you're meant to be." Kiiłchíí's stomach twisted. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The man chuckled. "You don't have a choice." The people of smoke formed a half circle behind Kiiłchíí, their bodies shimmering. The riders stiffened, hands drifting toward their guns. The elder stepped forward. "Leave this place. The boy is under our protection." The scarred rider spat. "Your protection don't mean a damn thing to the one who sent us." The elder's eyes narrowed. "You speak of a spirit you do not understand." The rider's grin widened. "Oh, I understand him just fine. He's the one who gave us our strength." He lifted his hand. The sigil on his coat pulsed. The ground trembled. Kiiłchíí staggered back as a wave of cold washed over him, cold that felt like fingers dragging across his spine. The black wolf surged inside him, howling with recognition. The shadow was near. The elder